everyone, so if you remember in the previous two videos I've been making my remaking my baby Mandrake, and it was one of them where I've been looking at it for a bit and I was like, I need to work on that again. I thought I'd only made it about a year or two ago. It turns out I made it in 2016, so yeah, it's 4 years old. And the video's still up on my channel. I'll put a link in the description if anyone's interested, but the original video was like 3 parts, which is weird because this is 3 parts. So in part 1 I made the Mandrake and added the bottom half to it that I didn't do last time I made it, redid the paint job on it, redid the roots and the branch system at the top, and then made a jar for him to go in with an old label, which I did in the second video. And this is the last and final video in this series, and in this one I'm making the leaves. To make the leaves it was quite easy. I struggled with ages to think how I was going to do it, and then I decided, well, the leaves don't have to be like really long because this is a baby Mandrake, so its leaves can be quite small. And I looked online to for the shape of the leaves of the baby ones, like the seedlings, and this is the shape that they are roughly, for the variety I've done. And I had some leaves left over from when I did that Halloween wreath and the Halloween broom, the Halloween besom that I'd made in October. And some of the leaves weren't orange, some of them were like a dingy sort of yellowy colour. Which is these ones, which is why I didn't use them. So I decided obviously these are ideal to paint on because the colours so pale. And what I like about these leaves is they've already got the veining painted on and it's already sort of embossed into the fabric. So by simply adding a coat of green over the top of the leaves, I had ready-made leaves. I may later on go over the veining a little bit and darken it, I'm not sure. I'm quite happy with how they are at the minute, so what I did was I just cut the leaves to the shape that I required, which meant they were this size because this was the biggest part of the leaf that I used. And I mixed some of my green paint with a little bit of grey and a dot of black, like the tiniest dot of black, just to dull it down a bit and make it a darker green, because the green in the tube is quite a bright one. And painted the leaves with that, and because the material's so thin, I found I didn't have to paint both sides because the paint went through the material enough to cover the other side and stain the other side green anyway, so that was quite useful. I made about, I think it was about 20 leaves in the end, something like that. And as you can see, look, when I turn that one over, the paint goes right through, so that was good. That saved me half the work. And yeah, so I just sat there and painted the leaves. I may later on add a bit of discoloration or anything, because obviously plants always have like 1 or 2 discoloured leaves, or leaves that are sort of they're finishing off. You know, maybe it's not facing the sun, so the plant drops that leaf because it doesn't need it, sort of thing. So I might add a bit of discoloration or a little nick missing out of a leaf. Sorry about that sun dropping audio. There was like a motorbike thing going past really loud, so to save your ears I tried to cut it out of the audio. So yeah, I just sat there and painted the leaves, and while these were being painted I put my hot glue gun on to heat up, which only takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes at the most, because the easiest way to stick these on is just with a nice blob of hot glue. I find it holds them on really well. And because it dries, because it sets so fast, like cools down so quickly when it's only small amounts, it's ideal for this because you can get the leaves on and in place, and you don't have to hold each leaf until it's dried. So yeah, I painted each leaf, and then while I was waiting for heat gun to cool down, I just cleaned off my brush and cleaned the work area and everything. I like to keep everything clean if I can, or at least as decluttered as possible, because I find it really annoying working on a desk that's dirty or working where it's cluttered, so I tend to tidy up as I go along. I like it so that at the end of each sort of session or day, making something that when I leave the room, it looks how it did when I started in the morning, sort of thing. Here I'm just touching up the odd leaf. I was going to add a little bit of like the darker grey just to sort of dull down some bits of the leaves, but I couldn't really see it, so I decided to leave that. That might be something I'll add as a bit more detail later on. I haven't decided yet. So anyway, while these were drying off, I then got my baby Mandrake sculpture, which you'll see him in a minute. And as the leaves were drying, I glued them on as they dried. Some of them were still a bit damp when I glued them on, but they did stay in place fine. And because the material's so thin and it was only like a thin watercolour, it did dry really fast, which is what I liked. So as you can see, this is my Mandrake, and I could have done thinner branches, like sort of finer branches towards the end to stick the leaves on. I decided not to bother in the end, and I just stuck the leaves over the end of these branches and it looked fine, so I've left it at that. I'm just cleaning the table off because I didn't want to get green all over the Mandrake. I didn't want to ruin the sculpture so far. This is one advantage, by the way, to having a piece of glass on the surface of your table. It's so easy to clean, especially with acrylic paint. And even if the acrylic paint's had a chance to dry, you just use a palette knife and you can scrape the paint off the glass. It's brilliant. Anyway, I took a leaf, and as I said, I just looked for each leaf that looked the driest. Little blob of glue on the end of the branch, and then stuck the leaf on. And the first few leaves were in the same sort of direction, but then after that I started sticking leaves on in different directions, because not every leaf is going to grow straight up in the exact same position and the exact same orientation. So obviously I varied it a little bit, but I'm making sure I just cover the end of all those branches, because a real Mandrake is a perennial, so it's always got green leaves on it. And obviously I wanted to make sure I didn't have any bare sticks. I wanted it to look like it was in, full of leaves. And what I did as well is I stuck some on the front and some on the back. You'll have to excuse the angle for a bit because I couldn't get to the one part with having it lying flat, so I had to stand the Mandrake up for a bit. But as you can see, I've started sticking leaves at slightly different angles and sticking them at the back as well as the front. This just makes it look like a bit slightly thicker canopy of flowers. Even though this is a sculpture designed to be viewed from the front, I didn't want it to look completely naff at the back. I wanted it to look finished from the back. So that's why I've gone around and added some of the leaves at the back as well. I may at some point in the future add more leaves, I'm not sure. I'm quite happy with the amount of leaves it's got at the minute. But yeah, I might in the future add just a few more leaves to fill up some more gaps, I'm not sure. The only annoying thing obviously with hot glue is you occasionally get these little strings, especially if you're like me and you're impatient and you start using the hot glue gun before it's completely warmed up. I tend to find those little stringy things are more common when the glue gun's not quite hot enough. So if you get that, just give your glue gun another minute or so to fully heat up and you won't get that anymore. But I find, as you can see, they're quite easy to remove. You just pull them off and, they're gone. So anyway, I stuck on the last few leaves at the front. Again, I'm trying to vary. I'm trying to have some pointing down like so and some pointing slightly off to the side. And that was it. That's how I made the leaves for my baby Mandrake. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you believe it's an improvement on the 2016 version. I think it's an improvement. I certainly prefer the leaves on this one. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.